Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's easy tutorial on the iniBuilds A320neo we are going to have a look at the takeoff and the initial climb out. Now, first of all, verify that the approach area is clear. There is no traffic on approach to our runway. You can see there is one landing on the parallel runway, but nothing coming for us. With that, we can start our lineup. So let's go ahead and start lining up on our departure runway. When we start the lineup procedure, turn the TCAS mode selector into TARA and announce to the cabin crew that we are now departing. You do that by clicking the PA button down here and saying, "Cabin crew, prepare for departure." Next up, we go to the overhead panel, turn the strobe light on, landing lights on as soon as takeoff clearance is received, and the nose light going to the takeoff position. Finally, turn the packs off if you have selected that in your takeoff calculation. With all of that completed, have a close look at the runway that you're currently lining up on and verify that it is indeed the correct runway. Namely, we read 25 left over here. With that done, let's read the lineup checklist. Takeoff runway, 25 left, TCAS, TARA, packs 1 and 2, on. And that's the lineup checklist complete. Of course, the correct answer would have been off, not on. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the takeoff procedure itself then. We are slowly going to advance our thrust levers, and you can see the thrust lever position by that blue donut up here to the 50% position. From there we're going to push it forward until we see MAN flags indicating over here on the flight mode annunciator. Generally, the flight mode annunciator over here is how the airplane talks to us. So if the plane tells us which mode we're in, have a look over here. There is a common misconception in flight simulation that you look up here. This is not where you see what the plane is doing. Right up here on the top of the primary flight display, that is where the plane tells you what it's doing. So push the thrust levers forward until you see MAN flags in here. Now, personally, I find that in the iniBuilds it can happen from time to time that the thrust levers don't exactly go right into the flags position. When that happens, you can get a master caution telling you that your thrust levers are not set correctly. When that happens, you might have to play with your thrust levers a bit to make sure that they really end up in the flags MCT notch, which will be indicated by the master caution going away and flags being shown on the flight mode annunciator up here. At 100 knots, we verify that the speed indication is correct, aka you've got 100 knots here, here, and here. And when you reach the circle symbol on the speed indicator, you will rotate to an initial pitch of 15 degrees. Now 15 degrees is marked by that indication up here. Once 15 degrees is reached and SRS mode, speed reference system, is shown on the flight mode annunciator over here, you can start following the flight director. Basically, the autopilot can be engaged as soon as you're in the air for 5 seconds, so that's basically about 100 feet of altitude. Once you reach that, you can engage the autopilot, which we are going to do in today's tutorial. Anything that comes thereafter, we are going to talk about when the time has come. Okay, ready to go? Let's put it to a test. By starting the takeoff roll, we put the elapsed timer into the run position, and we press the chrono button on the nav display to start our timing. Now we move the thrust levers to the 50% position and watch our engines running up there, which we basically have now. And now we can move them forward until we see flags MCT, or here we go, manual flag 60 on the primary flight display. Push the side stick forward as is indicated by the cross over here until we are reaching 100 knots to improve the steering qualities of your nose wheel steering. So we are now about reaching 100 knots, side stick going back to neutral. Over here we reach V1, this is where we can no longer stop the takeoff. So V1. Reaching the circle, rotate. So rotate at a constant rate all the way to 15 degrees pitch. Pretty much like this. Positive rate of climb shown on the altimeter, landing gear is going up, and we've passed 100 feet, so autopilot 1 is engaged by pressing the AP1 button over here. Now have a look that AP1 indeed shows on our flight mode annunciators. The autopilot is now going to follow the route of the flight. As soon as lever climb starts flashing over here, we pull our thrust levers back into the climb notch, which is indicated by thrust climb showing up here. When we pass the S speed, we are going to retract our flaps. So basically now, flaps 0. And when the flaps are retracted to 0, then we also disarm the spoilers by pushing the lever back in, and we turn off the nose light and the runway turn-off light. Next up, we can switch on the first pack, and 10 seconds later we are going to switch on the second pack. And that is basically going to conclude our after takeoff procedures. So, and the second pack is also coming on. Okay, and that basically concludes the after takeoff sequence. There is no after takeoff checklist in the A320 because the airplane would alert you to anything that could go wrong. For example, if you forgot to turn on the packs, you would get an alert on your ECAM display. When passing the transition altitude, which is going to be 5000 in this case, you will see that the QNH will start flashing down here on the primary flight display, like this. When that happens, set your altimeters to standard by pushing the lower end of the knob, effectively pulling the switch towards you. And also do the same on the standby altimeter. And with that we've got standard cross-checked, passing flight level 63 now. And when you say now, you compare that the three altimeter indications agree with one another. And that basically concludes the after takeoff and climb procedures. The next procedures are going to start at flight level 100, so we just got about another minute to go until we reach that. In the meantime, a couple words on how your autopilot is guiding you along the route. You can see that over here, for example, we got a 220 knot speed restriction. You can see the autopilot automatically maintains that as long as your speed knob is pushed in and the dashes are showing on the flight control unit. If you wanted to control the speed manually, you could pull it towards you and that would open the speed window. Now you can basically already dial up the speed as you wish. If you want to return control to the automatics, just push it back in and you can see now the computer is in charge again. So passing 10,000 feet, the airplane would normally start to accelerate automatically. You can see that it now does it, that we have overflown the speed restriction we had on the waypoint over here. When passing 10,000 feet, we are also going to run another procedure. Now, at 10,000, we basically configure the airplane for fast cruise flight. That means we're going to retract the landing lights up here. As soon as it is safe to do so, namely when there is no turbulence expected, we're going to switch the seatbelt signs to auto. Now, today we still have a little bit of clouds here, but it seems pretty smooth to me, so let's go ahead. Turn the seatbelt sign into the auto position. Going further down, we can select another mode on our navigation display. For example, if we wanted to see the airports around us, we would use the airport button. If you want to see VORs around you, you use the VOR button. And like that, you can basically choose on all the different indications that are available. Personally, I'm always using the airports in the real world, but since the iniBuilds shows us every airport, regardless of how small the runway is, I prefer to use the VOR button in the iniBuilds A320. We can do the same on the first officer side, where we can select, for example, the VOR display. Next up we go down into the FMC and we do what we call clear and copy. Now clear and copy basically means we remove any contents we had from the fix page. The fix page can be accessed through the flight plan key, press the left key, abeam the from waypoint, and then press fix info. And make sure that there is nothing in here in all the 4 fixed pages you have available. Then we go to the radio nav page and we would delete any manually tuned VOR we might have in here. Say for example, if we had BBI VOR manually tuned like this, it would be in capital letters, then you could press the clear key and remove it like that. So that the Airbus will now automatically tune the best VOR available along your flight. Finally, we go to the secondary flight plan key and we press copy active one more time so that we retain a copy of our flight plan. With that, our procedures passing flight level 100 are also complete, and now everything will get a little bit more relaxed as we can now sit back and watch the airplane as it flies along our predetermined route. Now, as we do that, let's quickly talk about one more factor that the pilots need to think about in the climb, and that is anti-ice. Now, you can see that there are a couple of clouds everywhere around us. When we took off in Berlin, we had an outside temperature of 21 degrees. Now, with those temperatures, water is not going to ice up. However, in the air, things can be a little bit different, and ice can actually form from temperatures of 10 degrees centigrade or less. That means when you are flying through visible moisture, which means clouds or fog or rain or snow, stuff like that, when you're flying through that and the temperature showing on the ECAM down here, the TAT, is reading plus 10 degrees or less, then you need to turn on the engine anti-ice. So, for example, if we were in the cloud right now, we would have to turn on engine anti-ice. When we need to turn it on, it's quite simple. You go to the override panel, you've got the anti-ice panel, you press the engine anti-ice buttons, and then you verify down here on the ECAM that engine anti-ice actually shows down here on the notification panel. Now, right now we don't have any icing conditions where we are, because we are outside the clouds, so we can turn this off again. And that's basically as easy as it is. Now, you also have wing anti-ice in your aircraft. Wing anti-ice is only used when there is actual ice forming on the wing. The easiest way to see that is by looking outside the front of your aircraft. You have a little ice detector probe right on here. If that one starts to collect ice, that is when you need to turn on the wing anti-ice. Otherwise, engine anti-ice is going to be sufficient for your flight. And that's about as easy as it gets. So, we're now climbing out and we can fast forward a little bit to the cruise segment where we are going to have a look at what we're going to do once we reach our cruising level, and where we're going to talk about our descent preparation. I would like to thank you very much for watching. Hope that you found this tutorial interesting and that you learned something today. Give me your feedback in the comments below, and as always, if you're up for more or if you want to see a more detailed tutorial series, I very much recommend my Phoenix A320 tutorials, where I went in quite a bit more detail than I did on this one. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you liked the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you're up for more, then be sure to also hit that little bell that you can see next to the subscribe button, as that is the only way how you're going to be alerted to new videos. Finally, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.